perhaps the most obvious challenge of working in a remote team is working together effectively and productively, despite the distance, despite time delays, and despite cultural differences. The keystone to solving the challenge of productivity with remote teams is well-formed processes and systems. It isn't sexy, it isn't exciting, but it is important. Now, it's fair to say that some cultures, and therefore people from those cultures, are more or less keen on processes and systems. Some find them to be liberating because everyone knows exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Others find it constraining, and some find it uncomfortable. However, finding the right balance of system and process on the one hand, and agility, flexibility, and personal autonomy on the other is part of building the culture of your team. But some element of processes and systems is going to be important. And I'm a big fan as well of things like templates and checklists. Now, whatever you choose, you can strengthen it by finding appropriate software that embeds the processes and systems and makes it easy for people to access them and to use them. Processes and systems that are hard to use create friction and people will reject them. Those that are easier to use than to not use will get used, and if you've chosen them wisely, then the team will benefit from that in terms of its working effectiveness, its working efficiency, and its overall productivity. We've talked in an earlier video about the importance of being clear about the expectations you put on people for the work they're going to do. And this, of course, includes things like quality and timeliness. And these can cut across cultural expectations. So make sure that you understand the cultural sensitivities and, where necessary, address them directly. It's clear to me that sometimes people have to work within a team culture that is different from their native culture. That's not to say you disregard their native culture or you disrespect it in any way, but it is appropriate sometimes to expect people to adopt the prevailing team or organisational culture. The need for productivity and team effectiveness cuts across team culture when we're talking about expectations around things like working hours, communication frequency, availability and private time, attendance at meetings, both live and remote, and sometimes around detailed role responsibilities and deadlines. You also need to set expectations about how often people respond to messages, particularly using remote services like Slack or email, even telephone voice messages. And I think one thing that flows from all of this is, if you want people to be productive and effective, they have to feel that the processes and expectations that you impose upon them, if you need to, are fair. And that means that you must apply the same expectations on all team members, only making exceptions where there is a clear justification and everyone will understand why that is reasonable and fair to do. A particular example of this is using time zones fairly in allocating work. Time zones can create huge benefits in the ability for work to move from one person to another, so that a task can be worked on sequentially almost over a 24-hour period before reverting back to the original owner of the task. But if you are allocating work in such ways that it takes liberties with people's personal time, that won't be seen as fair. Now, clearly, if the team is under a lot of pressure, it is reasonable to ask for additional latitude from your team members. But again, firstly, you have to be prepared and to respect it when people say no, they have other commitments. And secondly, the expectations you put on team members have to be fairly spread across the whole team. And that, of course, includes you. To assist with this, I like the idea of having time zone clocks in each workplace. But of course, we're not going to have a load of clocks on our wall in our home if we're working from home. But that doesn't mean that there aren't simple software apps that will allow each person to see the time at different team members' time zones. And it's a great idea to encourage people to do that so that they check the time of a colleague before sending them a message, therefore avoiding the inconvenience of sending a message to someone who may well be on private time but still have their computer or their phone or their tablet turned on. My final suggestion is where you can, and it's not always possible, but where you can, rotate people around roles. Give people opportunities to work in different areas of the team's responsibility, not only so that you can build up resilience within the team, so that you've got people who can take on work should the person who leads on it not be available, but also because this will help people to get to know one another and to respect the work that each of them is doing. It also means that you have a chance to share out the best work amongst all the team members, and indeed the least appealing work. The challenge of working effectively across the team when the team is remote is far greater than it is when we're together. But the quid pro quo is that many remote working teams are finding that individual productivity is increased by not having to worry about things like commutes or indeed distractions in the office. But finally, be aware that not everyone will have the luxury of a home location which is conducive to work. And if you are setting up a remote team, or if you are managing a remote team, be alert to that and find solutions to help people who can't work remotely as comfortably to get their work done well, which might mean finding funding for them to work in accommodation offices or suitable venues. Please do give us a thumbs up if you like this video. There's loads more great management courses content to come, so please do subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of it. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video, and in the meantime, keep learning.